Hello there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
Hello, listeners. How are you today? I sound extraordinarily energetic because I just got back from a vacation, a retreat where I did a little talk with everyone in Costa Rica. Pura vida, baby. Good life. Oh my gosh. So I'm revived. And of course, I have a fantastic guest today who we've already been talking offline, and she's already even increased my energy more, if that's possible. So I am so happy you're here today, my Inc. listeners. I hope you are well. Welcome to this week's episode of I Never Knew, But My Dog Did podcast. I am Maureen Scanlon. I am a master life coach, award-winning author, speaker, you name it, entrepreneur, as we have a little dog boutique, as I always share with you guys. So I am so ready. I'm amped up and I'm ready to go. Now, when you hear about my next guest and then you see her, when you see her on YouTube, on our video, you're going to go, how is this possible that this shining, smiley woman has been through all of these things? And that, my friends, is the foundation of our podcast, that you can see people who have been through it, been through the hardest, most difficult things in life. And with my next guest, it's not just one, it's like 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 things, and she has overcome, and she's going to teach us today about how to be resilient and how she pays it forward. So a little background: during COVID in 2020, personal hardship added some stress to an already devastatingly global pandemic. 1 month after surviving a successful heart transplant, she endured a sudden divorce after 27 years of marriage. She felt betrayed, devastated, and broken. And if you've been divorced, as I have as well, it is changing an identity of who you are and where do we go now. A few years before that, she ran her husband's business while overcoming breast cancer and losing her oldest son to suicide. She's always been inspired by real-life stories about ordinary people who overcame extraordinary hardship through perseverance and hope. She reflected on those uplifting stories of resilience and took baby steps to regain control of her life. She developed an action plan to overcome fears of starting life over at age 58. Yes, my nifty 50 queens. She experienced positive growth and she felt joy again. She's a resilience coach and an author of the book Flourishing After Adversity, and she has mentored foster kids in the Through THRU program of San Antonio. Yes, she is a fellow Texan. And on that note, welcome Laura Mangum Broome.
Thank you so much. What an introduction. I guess it's all been said and we could just go home now.
Oh, touche. My listeners would never stand for that. No. Because now they want to know how in the world, as I said, this beautiful, beautiful woman has overcome so much. And so here on Inc., of course, everybody knows I start off with your knee story, but you don't just have a knee story. You have 20 knee stories. So start with, when it began and when things started sort of unraveling for you, and this piling on of stuff, and where you were in your mindset, in your life, and in your thought of the future.
Well, you know, it really kind of came to, it just really culminated when I was being released from the hospital after my heart surgery. And I remember telling the nurse, I can't imagine going through anything more challenging than a heart transplant surgery during COVID. And I was just kind of chuckling about that. And everything just went perfectly with the surgery. I mean, it was truly a miracle. And I entered the hospital. 6 days later, they found me a heart. 2 weeks later, I went home. And so, I thought, oh, great, this is the beginning of my life again, second half of my life. And so a month later is when I found out my marriage was over. And I just couldn't comprehend how, after almost 30 years, my spouse can just it was like he already moved on. It's like, well, it's been nice see ya. And I think that was the hardest thing to wrap my head around, is how do you just throw, I mean, we were married half our lives. How do you just throw that away? And so I just was on a roller coaster of emotions. And but once I realized he had moved on, it was kind of like, okay, what are you going to do now? You got a new heart, a new life. What are you going to do? And are you going to be the victim and pine over something that you have no control over? Or are you going to do something about it? And so that's, it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah. There was a lot of processing going on there. And yeah. I love that you said that, because we don't jump, from this place of devastation to suddenly like, I'm just going to be happy now. No, that's not how that works.
No.
But I love that you said that. And listeners, this is something, that for me is really prevalent in my coaching, is that, that acceptance. When I hear that acceptance, and if you never get that acceptance, it's when you stay stifled. If you don't accept what is, there's no way to accept what will be, right?
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, it was when because being in COVID, we were under quarantine, stay at home. In addition to that, I was also quarantined for a year after my heart transplant. So, so I really was, I moved in with my sister, thankfully, my twin sister. But it truly was, it was just devastating. And once I was like, okay, what am I going to do? How do I get over this? I never expected to go through a divorce. And when you get to be, the marriage gets to be that many years, you just kind of think, well, you got ups and downs, it's good and bad. You'll just get through the bad times. And so now I had to move on. I had to decide, how am I going to move on? Because my life was not going to be the same anymore. And so that really is, fighting all that rumination that's going on, all those negative thoughts. My self-worth was, oh my gosh, just about 2 levels below pond scum, and because I've been through breast cancer, had a double mastectomy, and reconstructive surgery that didn't really go as well as I would have liked to. And you just feel like I'm just not worth anything. He found somebody better than me. And so that was really devastating. But then, like you said, when you get to that, I went through all the grief. I processed all my emotions with the help of a therapist for a short time, because I had problems with my insurance after the divorce. that I went without insurance for a year.
Mm.
And so, fortunately, I had gone through 8 months of follow up visits for my heart transplant, but then everything stopped. I had to pay for my medications out of pocket while I was trying to get my insurance figured out what was going on with that. So, but I had enough sessions with my, it was our marriage counselor, so I didn't have to rehash what we had gone through during the marriage counseling. And she just helped me get started on moving forward. And so I just continued what she told me to do, just being present and what am I going to do for the coming week and making a schedule of activities. Didn't have to be busy, but I decided I'm going to take, just try to do 3 baby steps today to move forward. But that radical acceptance, getting back to that, that really was a game changer for me, because when you can focus on what's out of your control, you just have to set it aside. You can't waste your energy on that. But what's in your power to move forward, to change, that's what you have to focus on to get over all these losses, all these hardships.
Yeah, and I want to,
that you understand that.
Yes, and that's I connect with you on that level, because as my marriage as well, there was infidelity, and there was alcohol addiction, and so I had struggled all these years to fix him with his alcoholism, and then to be betrayed, and like you, 27 years, you can't help but say, I wasted all my time, I did all my love, all my effort, and we internalize this. And this is one of those things, listeners, that I know we've all been told this, where it's like someone says something and you're like, yeah, whatever. Well, in this instance, when I say don't internalize when something like this happens, it's like, yeah, whatever. It's very hard not to. Mm-hmm. But it was easier to blame him. It was easier to say it was your fault, because then it took off those insecurities that I had about myself and my failure. So then I didn't have to internalize it. But then as you progress through the feelings and you learn to say, this marriage ran its course, this relationship ran its course, it had its purpose, and it didn't fail. It just, we outgrew it. And it feels so much softer and so much more loving than saying, I messed up, another woman was better than me, or I wasn't pretty enough. And when you have a sort of codependent mindset, you always think you did something wrong, you didn't try hard enough. Mm-hmm. And after 27 years, the way that you verbalized it when you said, I just found out my marriage was over. I mean, it must have been such a shock to you. It sounds like you didn't have any idea there was like a run up to it. Like you were in marriage counseling, but did you really think it was going to end, or did you think he had his mind made up while you were still working at it?
I really didn't. Well, let me back up. We had marriage counseling about a year prior to the divorce, and it was due to infidelity. One I found out about, some other ones I just didn't have proof. But this, what ended the marriage was the fact that I suspected something was going on, because it was a woman. He had a side business that he had hired this woman for, and then he brought her onto our business. And so I had suspicion, but it was flat denial on his part. Nothing was going on. Looked me straight in the eye. Nothing was going on. So when I kind of found the evidence to prove my accusation, that's when it kind of all fell apart. And I've even made these kind of was jumping to conclusions when I hear it from somebody else in this situation. Why don't you just leave? Because that always was, I took my vows seriously, and but when you've been married for almost 30 years, there's so much history, and um it's like, do I just end it, or do we work on it? And so that's what we had gone to marriage counseling, was to work on it. And but there was just more to the story that I did not know at the time, and then it kind of came out afterwards. So I mean, unfortunately, our son, we had two boys. Um, he was caught by surprise, and he felt the betrayal too, because he also had met this woman, and but you going through about all processing the emotions, when I realized my husband made a choice and he had moved on, I had to give myself grace and process it, because that was I think the hardest thing was, how do you just move on like that? Just like a flip a switch and move on. So that's kind of when I kind of looked at myself and said, what are you going to do? You got a new heart, you got a chance at a new life. Granted, I was almost 60, but I still looked at another, hopefully 20 more years left. What am I going to do with it? Am I just going to waste it, or am I going to do something? So that's when I started hit that anger stage in the grief process.
I
I
love
was
the
angry
anger
at him.
stage.
Oh, anger that's how you get to acceptance. I don't know. Everybody processes it differently.
You're right.
But
Right.
I first got angry at him, but then I got angry at myself. And it's like, he's moved on, so it's time for you to move on. And what are you going to do now? And so that's really was the beginning of the, I kind of call it the third part of my life. We didn't marry till we were 30. And so, I feel like the first third of my life, I was independent. I had, I didn't think I was ever going to get married. And then I met my husband. And so for the second third, of our life, we had our marriage. And now, the last third of my life, I'm kind of excited because, it's like every day's a new day. And, now I'm over that hump, and life looks great. There's so many possibilities, but it was that getting to this point, that I understand what people are going through, because when you go through that, such difficult hardships and challenges, I mean, you're knocked down, but it's like, what are you going to do now? Are you going to stay down, or are you going to get up?
I love that. The what now. And as I look at your life, I think yours is divided into 33 and a third, it's, and that's actually a really good lesson, because a lot of times I just blamed myself for getting married so young. I mean, I got married at 19 and had a baby immediately, moved to Germany with a newborn and not knowing, and he was already over there out of basic training. So we didn't even, he left 16 days after we got married. I went through a pregnancy and delivery by myself. My family had disowned me because they didn't agree with everything. So here I am, 19, pregnant. And so I always blamed myself. Well, gosh, you didn't make such a good decision. You did this really young. But like you said, even if you wait until you're 30, it isn't about the timing. It's about what's supposed to happen for us. And that's a hard thing for people to say, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. I shouldn't have gone through a heart transplant or breast cancer. And not only your physical, but then going through all of the emotional. I mean, that's just, hitting head on. What I love that you said was, I had my suspicions and then I got proof. And one thing I teach in my couples coaching is the fact that there's a leaver and a leavee. And when one leaves and the other one is like devastated, like, I have no idea how this happened, they've emotionally left long before they tell you they're leaving. So be aware of those signs, listeners. If you're in relationships, there are signs. Do not be oblivious, because you can drag it out for 30 more years, or you can confront it. And one of the things I always say when I help people with their confidence and being able to remove themselves from toxic situations or relationships that are no longer meant for you is that blood and time are not shackles to you to stay to anyone. And so, like you said, the 27 years, you want to fight for it. But what we have to do is just say, okay, 27 years was the contracted time that I got everything out of this turnip, you know, and I could move
Yes.
forward. And I want to talk about the most, to me, and I'm going to tear up. To me, listeners, losing a child is the ultimate pain and experience that you could ever go through. So that deserves its own time. So tell us about your beautiful, amazing son and how he ended up what's my word? Transitioning.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gosh. So tell us about him.
Yes. Well, like I mentioned, we got married when I was 30. I had my first son when I was almost 35. And I had a couple of miscarriages after that. And I really I wanted a big family. I just love family. And I had two other siblings, an identical twin and a younger brother. And we had a wonderful childhood. And I just wanted, to have several kids. And I used to joke around and say I wanted five. And so after a couple of miscarriages, we decided to adopt, and we adopted our son, Gregory, from another country. And he was 9 when we finalized the adoption. He was 3 months older than our biological son. And so we celebrated, we got home Christmas night, and then his birthday was December 31st. So we just kind of made fun of it and say, the whole world is celebrating, or at least the United States are celebrating your birthday with fireworks. They're so happy that you're home in America, and we just had a wonderful time getting used to being a family, and he acclimated so quickly, and he was such an intelligent child. He loved computers, fascinated with computers. And so our sons were very close, and they both went through they both signed up with the National Guard, because my husband was at the time was a reservist in the National Guard, and they both very active in Boy Scouts, and they both received their Eagle Scouts, and everything was going fine. They helped work with us in our business, but something went on. I don't know the whole story because I was going through my breast cancer journey at the time. And when he died, I was in the hospital having my double mastectomy, getting ready to have my surgery. And so we noticed a couple of months prior, his behavior was off. Just things he wasn't the same. But he was the introvert. Our other son was the extrovert. So it was hard to get Gregory to kind of open up. We had to wait for him to be able to open up. But we knew something was wrong. And he had gotten into drugs. And so I fortunately, I say fortunately, when I was in the hospital, my husband brought him up to see if I could talk to him because he wouldn't talk to my husband. And he wouldn't open up to me. So I just finally said, there's nothing in this world that he could ever do to make us stop loving him. We loved him no matter what, but we did not like this behavior, and we needed him to decide what can he do to change his behavior? And we would be willing to help him, but he needed to make that decision. And so my husband took him back home, and I don't know what happened at home, but I guess it was shortly after they got home. Um, that's when my son committed suicide and died by suicide. And so my husband had to come up to the hospital and tell me. And I was just in shock. It was just, it, I mean, I honestly, still looking back, I just kind of sat there like in a stupor. I was just in shock. I didn't immediately cry. I thought, am I a bad mother? I'm not crying. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to feel. This isn't real. Um, and the tears came, and we had so many wonderful people that helped us. Heard so many wonderful stories that I didn't know how he had um, uh, impacted other people. And so I dealt with the grief and processed all my feelings, and I realized, I'm not going to let those 2 to 3 months define who he was. He was struggling with something. I don't know what it was, but he's not in pain anymore. I miss him, but I'm going to celebrate his life, and I'm going to focus on the 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 happy memories that we had together for those 10 years. And so that's how I got involved with mentoring foster youth. Is because I wanted to honor his memory, either somewhere in the adoption foster area with families. I knew what the process was like, going through the adoption process, and how overwhelming that can be. And so that's what I've been doing for the last, I guess, 5 years now. I've been a mentor to youth who have experienced the foster care system, and they're transitioning into adulthood. And so 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 yeah.
The fact that, that happened while you're in the hospital and really unable, because a lot of people, when we lose a loved one, when it happens, activity is what kind of gets us through it, the planning, and you're just sitting there going through your mastectomy, trying to recoup and heal. And oh my goodness, to just feel the feeling of isolation and helplessness must have been just overwhelming for you at that moment.
It was. We had a pastor from our church. He and his wife had experienced the same situation, losing their son to suicide. And so when they got the news, they came to the hospital, and it was reassuring, to talk to somebody who had been through the same situation. Yeah. And I think, everybody grieves in their own different ways. And I'm not, some people may take this like I'm a cold person, and I'm not, but I'm a logical person. I'm an anal accountant by trade. But I go through the grief process, but I kind of have to accept things. It is what it is. I can't bring him back. I can't change the past. But what am I going to do now and going forward? And I think it's just because, what I've experienced since 2015, the breast cancer, losing my son, and the other stuff. I've had other hardships prior to that, not to this degree, and not in a cluster, because, so I guess along the way, I don't like to be suffering. And so I guess the way my mind works, I process those emotions, but then it's like I have to move forward because I don't like that heavy pain and suffering feeling. I mean, I've go through it for sure,
Right.
but after a while, it just I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, if that makes
Yes,
sense.
absolutely. I'm very similar to you in that way where, we have to feel it. We have to get it out, folks. We know this, right, listeners? Any of you who've been through coaching, therapy, or counseling, we can't keep it in there because it won't go away. But I am just like that, Laura, where I need to find hope. I need to find a good thing that has something good has to come from why I'm going through this thing. Why do I have this
Exactly.
experience? And I was telling Laura offline, the first half of my life was learning, the second half is teaching. And so my gratitude for my experience is that. And so for you, I hear echoing the same thing like this I have to find meaning for what I went through. I'm not going to just sit in it and be in that victim mentality. And I love, love, love people who pay it forward and I've said this, listeners, you've heard this before. When you help others, you help yourself. You
Hmm.
heal yourself. You cannot
Yes.
stay in sadness when you're helping others. It's impossible. How do you bring hope to someone when you don't have hope yourself? Impossible. So it's like this natural progression of let's do something to get ourselves healed, but at the same time, we're doing something for humanity and others. So, wow, as a resilience coach, what would you say are the top like 3 steps if someone comes to you and says, whoa, I just went through some stuff like similar to you, or I'm going through it. Where do I start? What do you tell them the first steps to moving forward with resilience?
The first step I would say is to talk to them about that radical acceptance. You have to decide, are you ready to move forward? You know, adversity makes you bitter or better. If you choose better, then you can move forward. If you choose bitter, you're going to be stuck. And as a resilience coach, I can't help you until you make that choice to be an overcomer, to be a survivor. And so it really, first, I have to figure out what is your choice, you know, but choosing to move forward, radical acceptance, it was a game changer for me. And I think it is for so many people. Just, you know, make a list. Usually what I do with my clients is just tell them, make a list. What's out of your control, what's in your control. And everything, just tear the paper in half or erase all the stuff that's out of your control. And then look at what's in your control and figure out what are 3 things that are going to help me move forward.
Yeah.
You know, and usually I tell people, depending on where they are in that stage, is like for me, um, it was just get out of bed and move to the couch, you know, and then it was okay, get out of bed, just put a shirt on, keep your pajama bottoms on, but move to the couch. You know, so sometimes it can be as little as those tiny baby steps, but you're still moving forward. Just add one more thing to that the next day. And so if you can find 3 simple tasks that you can complete and feel a sense of accomplishment, that really helps your attitude and it makes you feel like you've done something today, you know.
I
So
love all of that so, so much. I'm writing this down if you see me looking down. I love
mhm.
that so much. And what I love that you're giving the audience is the fact that it doesn't have to be these big moves. You don't go
No.
from being devastated to, I'm going to go back to college and get a degree. No, you literally said, I'm getting up from the bed and going to the couch. And I love that so much because we're so hard on ourselves and we
Hmm.
we look around at the world and it's always hustle hustle, people are doing this and I need to do this and I've got to make goals. No, I'm like you in that way where it's like, just do something that brings you joy today. Just do
Yes.
something that gives you a feeling of, I'm okay. I did something good today for myself. Or the smallest little thing. I'm all about creativity. You know,
Hmm.
do put a puzzle together. I mean, think about COVID.
Right.
think about during COVID how creative we had to get. You couldn't run to the stores, or you couldn't go to movies. You couldn't, that I COVID brought out lots of good stuff, even though we all kind of
Yes.
clarified if our marriages and relationships and families and jobs were what were
E-
meant for us.
exactly.
And it really made us, like I always say, it figuratively and literally made us look inside. Because I got to meet more of my neighbors during COVID than I had in the 15 years of living there prior. I mean, hey, we went for walks every night. So I love that you said find 3 tasks to complete, and don't put pressure on yourself. Right? It doesn't have to be today. It could be this week.
Right.
Your timing is your timing.
Right. Right. And then the second step would be like what we've already kind of talked about is gratitude. Find 3 things to be grateful for at the end of the day. And that can be, at first, sometimes you think, my gosh, I can't see anything good that happened today or be thankful for. And sometimes it's like, thank goodness things aren't worse, because they could be. And so you can start looking at things that are, how it could be worse, and flip those. And there's your gratitude, you know, and it's a simple step. I like to keep everything basic, because when you're going through really tough times, your mind is just going 90 to nothing. You can't focus on things. Making decisions is hard. So keep it simple, and just 3. I like odd numbers. So, three is good to start with. And if you can't do 3, do 1,
Yeah,
and
three
then
is
just
my
add
number. I love
one.
that. Yeah, I could see coming to you as a resilience coach, not only this is, I'm going to say it again. I think coaches, life coaching, no disrespect to therapy, but you can get all that stuff out in therapy. But I think with coaches, being able to share our own stories, to say, wow, look what I've been through. I can only imagine your client sitting in front of you and you say, hey, I get it. I've been through a heart transplant. Hey, I get it. I've been through a different. Hey, I get it. My son committed. So, I mean, your clients are probably like, oh my God, I don't have any problems. I'm good. I'm good. But you're such a soother. You're such a there's no pressure with you. And I love these. These
No,
aren't big formulas. This is just,
no.
let me just help you take baby steps. I'm right here holding your hand, and we'll get through this.
And I'm actually, I say baby steps, and I talk about keeping it simple, because when I was going through all my stuff, I had to figure it out on my own. It's like when you just don't want something complicated. I didn't want to understand why I'm feeling this way. It's like, I just want practical steps to move forward. And so that's what my framework is about. It's just, I won't solve your problem, but I'm going to give you the tools and the coping strategies to help you make those choices. And that's my favorite word. My buzzword is choices. We have choices. We may not like them, but just like the weather, our situation is going to change, and you might have some other options that come up, but you have to choose. You have to make a decision. And and just, but baby steps, simple. Keep it simple. Just get back down to basics.
Yeah.
And I think just the radical acceptance, the gratitude. Oh, there's so many other things, but I'd say really those 2 things are enough to get started, and to start building your confidence and feeling empowered. The other thing I like to tell people too, because I don't think we realize this, I didn't until I um, came to this conclusion, is that there's so many things we don't have control over. And you can get really down on yourself and really feel out of control. But the one thing that I want everybody, your listeners, to know is that you always have control over your thoughts, your words, and your actions. And if you start taking account of what all that encompasses, you have so much power to change your circumstances. And to change your life because you're in control of those. You're not, nobody else has control over you. They shouldn't. You know, that's it. I'm not, that's not, you know, I mean, there's other situations where it might be, but for the most part, you have control over yourself. You don't have control over other people. So if they do something, you know, the way they talk to you, what they think of you, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you know what they say about opinions, you know, they're like
Everybody.
armpits. We'll say they're like armpits. Everybody has one. Okay.
Right.
So what does that matter? What does that matter what they think about you? You know, that, but you know what's best for you. You know your story. You know your experiences, your beliefs, and you have the power to change your situation if you choose to.
Yeah, yeah. And I completely 100% agree. I give my clients the circle of control, little diagram. I tell them, put it on your fridge. Anything that
Mm-hmm.
happens to you, you go to that circle of control and it's a circle and it says, this is what I have control of. This is what I don't have control of. Yes. And it's a visual because I'm really visual. Mm-hmm. Go to that. And it is empowering. And I talk about this a lot. Listeners have heard me say this choice because you do. Mm-hmm. Feel when you're in situations, especially say with DV or health or somebody else, you know, somebody else's life, fixing your son's problem, you know, we mm-hmm. when you're, and not even empathetic, but just when you're a loving person in this life and you have connection with people, you want the best for them and you try to fix them, but in turn you lose yourself. And right. It's so empowering to say, I have a choice and I am empowered to do whatever I need to do. And I think if we hone back in on our own paths, it's when mm-hmm. we start to take more action and live a more positive life, because then we're saying that works for me. And if it doesn't work for me, I don't need it. It can be left on the trail, right?
Yes. Yes. You know, we just need to take a look at our core values and our expectations and look at our boundaries. I really didn't have good boundaries, healthy boundaries, until all this stuff happened. And now I know what I can say yes to. I know what I can say no to. And it's empowering. You know, it's not that I always say just respectfully, politely decline. And, you know, and because I was a yes person, I took care of everybody else, you know, and I set myself on the back burner. And if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of other people?
Right.
Know?
When you're your best, you can be your best for everybody mm-hmm. else. And you're right. And, you know, coming from sort of the similar background for you as you, guys and gals, make sure that that line in the sand doesn't move. And I know when you're in these relationships and we've been together and I really love this person, that you keep moving that line in the sand. And that applies to people who have, you know, narcissistic qualities or NPD. Mm-hmm. We do tend to blame shift. And then we look at ourselves and, well, maybe it was me. And we keep moving that line in the sand. And those boundaries are crucial and yes. empowering. When I was mm-hmm. able to say, yeah, that's not okay with me, or that doesn't work for me. No one is allowed to tell me what works for me or doesn't work for me.
Exactly.
That's the fun part, right?
Yes, because they're not in your shoes. They don't know what you've experienced. And I tell you, I am completely no judgment now in my older age because like the divorce, it not only shocked me, but it shocked a lot of our friends because they didn't know a lot of things that had been going on. Right. You know, because I kind of covered things up, and we had our, you know, your public persona and your private persona, and I didn't want people judging me, and it really, so now I don't judge anybody anymore because I don't know what their whole life encompasses. I just see their public, you know, their public life.
And there you go. Therein lies, that lesson where it's like, oh, I may have been judgmental before. And
Yes.
I had to, do not judge lest ye be judged. But you're right. There's so much more going on behind the scenes. And there's that level of shame. Like you,
Yes.
my family, there was no divorce in our family. My parents have been married for 57 years. My brother and sister married to their original people. So there's a level of shame in sharing that stuff. And that's why it was easier to share that he was unfaithful rather than he was abusing me. Because the shame part was, I allowed this thing to happen. I'm a smart woman. Like, how could I do this? So yeah, definitely the shame part. So tell us about your book. We've got about 10 minutes left. Tell us about your book, where to find it, where to find your website. And then I have a fun little question at the end, because we always like to leave it light. So your book, Flourishing After Adversity. Tell us about
I have a copy of it right here. I know. I love the cover of this because that's what I feel like my life is like now. I have come out of the cocoon, the chrysalis, the dark. I've been transformed, and I'm this beautiful butterfly living, the rest of my life, and with joy and just freedom. And so my book, I wrote my book because it's like, oh, I don't want to write a memoir, but I wanted to get my concepts across that helped me in the resilient skills and coping strategies. So I wrote it. Each chapter, it has one of my stories, and then it has the concepts that I teach. I have a 3-pillar framework, and so it's broken up into 3 sections. Fourth one is a bonus on how to teach resilience to our kids and pass it on to the next generation. And so each pillar has a section, and it's tells a story, and then the concepts that go along with that story. And then at the end of the chapter, it has kind of like the rest of my story, how it ended up, the conclusion of that situation. And then at the end of each chapter is a list of questions and exercises that help the reader implement these concepts in their life. And so I really wanted it. I'm working on a workbook and the audio book now, but the book itself, it's kind of like a do-it-yourself. You go through the framework, and there's a link in the back of the book for some free resources that kind of will be in the workbook as well. But I wanted to write a book that I wish I had, but I couldn't. I couldn't find it. And so it's, if you're in the United States, you can go to my website, and you can get a free paperback. Just pay $5 shipping and handling, and I will ship it out to you. And it's just, I just wanted to get the book in people's hands. It's also available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. But I just want to give this to people to know, you can go through hardship, and you can overcome and be a survivor, and you can rediscover joy. And if I can do it, so can you.
Oh my goodness. And how generous of you, listeners. If you go to her website, and it's ICOPE, ICOPE, the number 2, HOPE.com. And if you guys need any resilience coaching as well, make sure that you go there to sign up. So IHopeToCope.com. And how generous that only shipping costs to send her book. That really is a heart of service in my eyes to as I always say, I want to be the voice my younger self needed, because no one walked me through it, and that's you. We are soul sisters on that. So what an absolute beautiful thing. You are just so amazing to me, and I use amazing too much. I need a bigger word. How can I come up with a bigger word for you? So I have in front of me, I'm not kidding, you guys would laugh. I have, as an ADHDer, everything is visual in my office, and I have 6 pages of positive adjectives. And what do I always come back to? Amazing. I mean, really?
I use that too.
charismatic, charming, marvelous, magnificent, intellectual, insightful. I mean, literally, you're all of those things. So, I just,
thank you.
it's my go-to. Amazing. I love everything about you, everything you've been through. And since she's my fellow Texan, we're going to meet up for coffee because she passes through my town. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you've shared with everyone. And I want to end this with a quick question for you. What do you think is your weirdest quirk that you have that most people do not have? And it could be anything from I can only use a pencil, not a pen, to I flip the light switch off 10 times. I don't know. Just what's a weird little quirk that you think you have?
Oh, I have a lot of them.
There you go.
I think a weird quirk for me, and some people have kind of said this, I can find humor in just about anything. And I mean, good things or bad things. Sometimes the bad things, not at the moment, but looking back, I can find humor in just about anything. And because I love to laugh, I love to giggle. And in fact, my twin sister and I, we're also known as the Giggle Twins with our friends and family. So I would have to say that's probably it, finding the humor in just about anything.
That is a gift. That is something that is not easy to do. And, you know, I'm that person that would make you laugh at a funeral because I don't like people to be sad or hurting. So
I know.
I literally,
Well,
I'm not always appropriate, but I do make you laugh.
I know. Well, but you know, they say humor, you know, it helps you to not take life so seriously, you know, at appropriate times, of course. But I would be, if I sat next to you at a funeral, we'd both be giggling and have to leave. But not at what I don't know. But yeah. But boy, when you laugh, those endorphins and the feel good and it's so healthy for you. You know,
Yeah,
but I guess, inappropriate situations, but yeah.
Happiness chemicals. Well,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much, Laura. Hang in with me as we end this, guys. I hope all of you enjoyed Laura. I bring you the best guest. Do I not? I hear you. I hear all of you going, yes, girl, yes. And once again, I have not let you down, have I? So icope2hope.com and her book, do not forget to look that up, Flourishing After Adversity. So if you need any guidance, I love that the book, as they call it in psychology, is a practical application. Mm-hmm. And it also connects and puts your humanity and your experience to say, hey, I'm not just giving you this advice. I lived it. It worked. I did it. So what a neat combination and balance of, I can't wait to read it. And listeners, as you know, starving author here as well, please review books. Review. It takes 2 seconds to review a book. I don't care if you just go and look at like 3 pages out of a book and you really like it. Please review, because it really, really helps an author to get their book out there, get visibility, and move up in the Amazon list. So it's crucial. It is. And I'm not salesy, you know that. So go review. Speaking of reviews, we are 5 stars on Apple. Please go review our podcast. And don't forget to share, invite your friends, send me, I don't know, suggestions on content, anything you want to be a guest, you want me to be a guest on your podcast, I'm open to that too. Don't forget my books. My dog is more enlightened than I am. And my dog is my relationship coach because, well, puppies. Enough said. My children's book, My Dog Bexley is Just Like Me, teaches our children that self-care and mindfulness are good, and you can replace the name Bexley with your dog's name, so it's even more personal to teach your little ones, 6 years and under, those early readers. Let's get mindfulness started now. I have a granddaughter who I wrote it for. Bexley is my grand dog, and she loves the book. She giggles, and she just every time, like it's because it's repetitive, it's easy for children to stay engaged in it. And if you put their doggy's name in, even better. And last but not least, please go to mydogiseverything.net. Guys, you're not going to believe this. I keep saying guys. Y'all, I'll just go the Texas way. Y'all, all y'all need to go to the boutique, because you're not going to believe this, but we have some brand new fantastic products. We now make little tutus for your dogs, and they are absolutely stunning. We also added some carriers, so you can carry your babies, and that goes for kitties and puppies, as well as always the paw balm. Summer's coming up, so make sure you protect the noses and the toeses, keep them protected from the sun, and they are completely safe and lickable for those babies. I noticed my dog has been licking their paws a lot from allergies, and we put it on, and it has eased their allergies. So there's that. Also natural shampoos, all that fun stuff. So yes, we ship it out right away to you. mydogiseverything.net. So thank you all for being here. I love you all. I appreciate you all. We are growing, still in the top 5% globally of all podcasts. Yes, that's over 3 million podcasts. We're in the top 5%. Don't ask me how that happened, except that this content and the guests and the people and the audience are absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. And I'm a one-woman show. So my embracing technology, as Laura and I said, is very difficult, has paid off. So I love you all. Please take care of each other. Take care of yourself. Most of all, take care of those furry babies. And please be sure to adopt and do not shop. And we will see you next week. Love you all. Mwah.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.